Hello and welcome to this tutorial video for Divinity Original Sin 2's Game Master Mode. The first thing I want to tell you about Original Sin's Game Master Mode is that we've divided the Game Master Mode into three distinct parts. The first one is the overview map, which you see here in front of you. The second is the vignette window. And finally, the game field, which you'll be familiar with because when you play the game, it's a very similar look and feel to what you would do when you play a single-player game of Original Sin 2. As you can see here, we've got a default map that one of our artists has painted, and if I right-click on the image, I can change map image. You'll see that there's a various amount of selections you can pick from, and if you want to, you can browse your own computer to find an image that you've either found on the internet or that you've created for yourself, and you can import it straight into the game and use it freely. So I've set up a really basic scenario here where we've just got our party that's starting off in this small village and a little bandit outpost which I've created over here. The other thing we can do, by the way, is while we can import the map as we wish, if we wish, we could actually zoom in to the map and do as we want with that. So you can also resize the window. You can do various things in this control, and your players will see this too as you play. The very foundation of GM mode is based on these pins. I can very easily add any pin to the world by just clicking and dragging here, or right clicking and say create new pin. Each one of these pins essentially becomes a linchpin or a foundational point where we can create new scenes and add new content. Let me just delete these for the moment and show you the pin that we have created, which is this bandit outpost. So we're going to say this is a really basic adventure where the adventurers are going to take on this bandit outpost. We could create multiple pins here for their journey with different NPCs or ambushes or interesting encounters as they journey to the bandit outpost. But for the moment, we're just going to customize this one scene. As you can see, I can very easily drag the pin wherever I want to. But the fundamental part of the pins are the scenes that you attach to it. So right now, you can see that we have our maps list over here, and we can also create new maps. And you can name each one as you will, and you can also arrange them in folders, just so that they're easier for you to control. Let me just hit enter here and drag this into the folder, and now you can see it's nicely tucked away and organized. So when you create that epic 20-hour campaign that you've been dreaming of, you'll have multiple folders for you to be able to sort out. In the scenes window, you'll see that we have the same folder functionality, so you can create multiple folders with multiple scenes so that you've got clear control over what you want to do. And we've actually lost our map, so let me just reload that there. There's our one with the bandit outpost. So the scenes here with the bandit outpost, as we can see, you can see that we've got a forest tile bandit outpost, and it's under the darkwood pin. Now, this used to be darkwood. I'll have to rename this to bandit outpost. As you can see, we can rename everything, and this automatically took an old pin name that I had for it over here because I called it darkwood earlier on. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into the level and load it, and I can do this in various different ways. I can either double click it, or I can right click on the pin and say buy new level to create a new level for it, or load a level. So I'm going to load the level here, and it's going to quickly hop into our bandit outpost map. All the maps in Divinity Original Sin's GM mode, and I'll go over to them now and show you. If I say buy new level, you'll see that we have about 120 different maps in the mode as we speak. Each one of these is small parcels of land in different biomes and designs, and that's so GMs can essentially use them like jigsaw puzzles to put together the exact environment they want to create. So if you wanted a simple house environment, you could use this attic, but maybe you want to create something that's much more elaborate, and you can have all of these different scenes running into each other. And because of how simple and small the maps are, they are actually very, very quick to load, so your players have very little downtime as you switch scenes. This will actually give you the freedom to create the exact scenario that you want to create, rather than being locked into the scenario that we've created by making a massive map for you. So this little bandit outpost scene here that we've got is essentially a forest scene that goes into a bandit outpost with a boat onto either a lake or the sea. And we can do various things with this, and I'm going to show you a few of the things we can do now. We can customize this level through various ways. The very first basic thing we can do is set the start point for the player. So we go to the edge of the map, and we can essentially just say, okay, the party are going to start here. Or, you know what, maybe they're coming on the boat, and so they're going to start here. Or maybe we want them to, I don't know, drop from the sky and just land center of the map. We can do that, and we can easily create the different entry points the way we want to do that. And as you can imagine, with various maps, certain things will have certain entry points, especially the dungeon tiles, and then this will allow you to reuse the maps in different ways based on where the players actually come from. The second thing we can do, just for the moment, I'll say that they arrive over here. So they're coming in this way, and they're going to attack the bandit camp. The second thing we can do is set the mood. Now, this is one of the defining features of what makes the map different every time you play, or you can customize it the way you want to. And the way we're going to do that is the mood panel. The mood panel allows us to do everything that you might imagine to set the mood. I'm going to turn off peace mode just so this little UI stays away and stops warning us that peace mode is on. We can either set the atmosphere, which is changing the lighting effects. We can add music to the scene. We can add ambience, and we can add sounds. The sounds are once-off sounds and explosions and different effects. So if I hit boom, oh, my game volume's a little bit low. Let me just turn that up for you. Yeah, perfect. So if I hit boom now, you're going to hear the different sound effects kicking in. And as you play these sound effects, your players will hear them too. The next we can do is ambience. So if we were to say, you can hear birds chirping at the moment, but if we wanted to, we could make some sort of wind canyon or a windy deep forest. And that ambience will play in the background and will be saved to the scene. Next we can add some music to it. So if we wanted to make it a little bit more sinister, maybe we could pick something with a bit of tension. So let's pick infiltration, because we're going to try and sneak into this camp. And that music will kick in shortly. And the next we can do is actually set the atmosphere. And this will completely change the lighting effects, including any sort of special effects like rain or fog or whatever. So in this case, if we wanted the bandit camp to be beside a burning volcano, we could use ash rain. If I change it to 0-second transition, it'll instantly change for us. And we're going to see now that it looks like we're beside a burning volcano. Likewise, if you really wanted it to be nighttime, you could cycle down to something like the graveyard stormy and change that. And now it's a stormy night, and it's currently raining. And we'll see the rain effect kicking in any second now. And so this will change depending on how you want, and you can do this dynamically in the game as well. So as the players are playing in the world, you could set the fade timer to be different and go from the rain to, say, foggy. And then the actual weather effects will transition gradually rather than switch as quickly as I've been doing it. And now you can see we're in this very, very deep fog. So this can be done on the fly, or you can do it in preparation. Depends on how you want to play and how you want the GM. But everything you're going to see today is all about empowering the GM. We want to make sure that you as a GM have all the control you want, and that includes being able to change the weather effects, the music, ambience, or sound, whatever you feel is appropriate. We're going to close the mood panel for the moment, and we're going to continue to design our scene. The next thing we're going to do is decorate it a little bit. Right now we've got a nice little campfire here, so we could actually move this if we want to. We can also move these torches, or we can very easily duplicate these torches and then add them around the scene. You'll also see that most of our torches and fireplaces and whatnot are their own light source. So if I have it here and then I delete it, you'll see that the light is no longer shining. Now, I'm going to turn the music off for a second just so that you can hear me talk, and I'm making sure I'm not shouting over the music. But I'm going to decorate the scene a little bit more, and I'm going to go into my creatures and items and click on items. You'll see that almost every item in the game in Original Sin is included in the GM build. That means that if we want to, say, put a corpse on the ground, we could do that. Or if we wanted to, say, make a chest for people to actually loot. Once this is complete, maybe they're trying to ship off this chest from with the boat here. We can then make this chest and allow our players to loot it after the combat has completed. Or maybe they don't even have a combat and they sneak in and sneak past the sleeping guards only to escape on the boat later on. Whatever you want to do, the freedom is in you and your players' imaginations. The next thing I'm going to do is actually add our bandits. If I click on here, I'll see that I've got a bunch of different archetypes and creatures in the game. They're also divided into humanoids, animals, monsters, and undead. So humanoids, archetypes, you'll see various different styles of characters that we can use, all of which are highly customizable as well. But in this case, I'm going to go to Outlaws and pick a couple of bandits first to use. So I'm going to go to Bandit Ranger here, Bandit Warrior, and Bandit Rogue. So we're going to create a basic scene with these three characters. Now the first thing you can do is click and drag any character the way you want to. You can also use the mouse wheel to rotate these characters freely. If I right click on a character, say this Bandit Warrior here will be our boss character, we'll right click on him and we'll be able to see that we can manage him. When we click on manage, we're going to get all this control and ability to do as we wish. So first things first, I can rename him because every big boss should actually be named. So we're going to say Bob the Boss. So Bob the Boss here is going to be a recurring character in the game. So we're going to add and change some of his attributes, but we're also going to save him for later so we can use him in future scenes. So you can see I can completely change his stats. I can also change his level on the fly. I can give him source points if I want to, and I can give him additional action points. I can also change his resistances, as well as any sort of stat that you can imagine. Combat abilities, civil abilities, everything. Talents as well. The next thing we can do is give him an inventory, and indeed if we wanted Bob here to become a trader, we could actually give him some basic items to trade. So this warrior trader and uncommon items, level 3, generate. And now Bob is a trader who can trade with gold and these various items. But right now we don't want Bob to be a trader, so we'll clear this and we'll take it away from his inventory and we'll move on to skills. Skills are ridiculously easy to add into GM mode. The first thing I can do is click on K. I can click K or click on GM skills here, and you'll see that every skill in the game is basically usable by the GM. So if I wanted Bob here to be a little pyromage in training and give him searing daggers, we could drag this over and now he has the skill searing daggers. You can see though he doesn't actually have pyrokinetic 1. So if I go to my combat abilities, add pyrokinetic, now he'll be able to use the skill freely. Oh, and I've just misclicked there. But you'll see that I can now use searing daggers. Any skill that Bob has I can easily remove by clicking this little X button, and now he no longer has it. This can be done again on the fly within the game, not just when you're preparing a GM campaign, and you can also give it to your players as well. We'll close that for the moment and we'll move on to appearance. If we zoom in for a second, you'll be able to see that I can cycle through various different choices of hairstyle, head, torso, arms, trousers, everything that you can imagine in terms of aesthetics and gear that he could be wearing. And we can also change his color set too if we want to. If I click on custom stats here, you'll see you'll also be able to get a basic text editor where you'll be able to add your custom stats and modify them on the fly as well. The final thing I want to show you with Bob here is his two little things at the top here. You've got your basic AI tutorial, or your basic AI drop down, and you'll see that you can change the style of fighting that the AI will take over. And you can also then see that we can change his allegiance to ally, neutral, or enemy. I'll put on peace mode for a moment because I'm going to turn him into an enemy, and I'll turn this Bandit Ranger into an ally. And I'm showing off another useful tool in the game, which is peace mode. Peace mode allows you to have these allies and enemies right next to each other without instantly starting a fight. So if I hit peace mode off now, you'll see they pop into a fight straight away. And since this character is neutral, he's run away and hidden away into the tent. I'm going to drag him back because we don't want him to be cowering in fear. But you can see that if you wanted to have, say, players in a situation where they have two NPCs about to start a combat, if your players are, exploring over here, you don't want that combat to start straight away. So you keep peace mode activated, and then as soon as you want the fight to start, you just click off peace mode. That allows your players to show up on the scene of, say, a normal civilian being harassed by bandits, and you can try and role play maybe to negotiate with the bandits or do as you will. And then if that doesn't work out, just click peace mode off again, and the combat will start normally, and you'll go into Divinity Original Sin 2's combat. We were editing Bob here, and if I go back to manage, I'll keep him as enemy because I actually want him to be an enemy. But we'll show you just a few more things that we can do with Bob. The next thing we can do with him is completely set his target health. As you can see from that combat, he's been injured. I can now boost him back up, so now he's full health again. I can also, if I wish, just instantly kill him, and I can resurrect him at will. You can do this with any character in the game, including PCs. The final thing I can do is apply any status effect to the character. So if I right-click on Bob, you'll see every status effect in the game is available and usable. So I can turn Bob into a chicken if I want to. Now, as you can see, it is only over a certain amount of turns. So in this case, he's going to turn back after the turn has gone. We can set the amount of rounds to be as much as we want, and we can set it to be infinite by going to -1. If we set it to -1, he'll be a permanent chicken and he'll run around as such. This is also very useful if you want him to be some sort of unique boss who's got some that's permanently hasted, or maybe he's continuously healing, or he's always lucky, or if you wanted to use the polymorph skills to make him look particularly cool, you could also give him wings with spread your wings. If you make it permanent, he'll always have those wings until he dies, and then the status effect will zero out, and when you resurrect him, he'll lose his wings. But Bob, the boss here, will now have wings. Once we've finished customizing Bob, you can basically save him for future scenes. And the way you do that is right-clicking, hitting Save As, save his name, accept, and now he's been put into the exported catalog in Creatures and Items. So if I go to Creatures and Items, and I scroll down to Exported, you'll see that Bob the boss is now here and usable, and we can add him to any scene that we want to. The last thing I can do with Bob in this window here is possess him. Now we can do this and basically control him as if he was a character in Original Sin 2. So remember we gave him Searing Daggers? Well, we can now cast Searing Daggers as Bob, as you would be able to do in the normal game. This is very, very useful if you wanted to use this as a way of role-playing with your characters, with your players. If they're talking to a specific NPC, it can be very useful to possess him as you're talking with him, just to give him a bit of animation as he's playing with his characters. Make Bob fly over there. So I'm going to go back to Game Master mode and just show you a little bit more of what we can do. Rotate Bob here. Alright, so I've shown you customizing Bob, I've shown you saving Bob. Obviously, I would be remiss without showing you some of the cool enemies and demons and everything else that we have in the game. And let's do that now by showing you something like the Hungry Flower. And you've got various different characters and enemies in the game, just like you would in Original Sin 2. Pretty much everything that we had in the game has been ported over. And yeah, so all those different creatures and items are there for you. And we do have workshop support, so if people are going to be creating items in the workshop, they'll be able to import them and put them in here. The way we organize this event, we can actually give you a little bit more control over this as well by using encounters. Encounters are very, very useful. If I create a new encounter now and just say Bob and his gang. Bob's gang here now, we can actually drag all of these into the one encounter, and we can easily change their level on the fly as well as their allegiance. So if we want all of these guys to go from neutral, where they're friendly to the players, into enemies, we can do this instantly by creating encounters for the players. This is really useful for when you say have a group of town guards, and they're pretty much going to be allies to the player, but the players want to play an evil campaign. In that case, then have your guards in a encounter like this, and then worst case scenario, if the players start to attack him or attack any of the guards or attack an innocent civilian, you can grab all your guards and instantly change them all to enemy for the players, so they'll start a combat with the players, and that will play out as you would expect. This will stop you having to individually right-click each one, manage, and change their allegiance. It'll also allow you to possess the entire group at the same time, so that in combat you'll be able to control them. In combat you'll have the choice. You can either possess the characters and control them in combat directly, or you can, if you wish, let the AI take control, which as a GM might be very, very useful to you, because then you can actually do various things around the map as the characters play out the combat. The other little tools that we have down here are surfaces. As you know from Original Sin 2, a huge part of our gameplay is the elemental interactions between our magic and the surfaces that they can create. So we've got direct control over that in GM mode, and we can actually paint surfaces very easily using the surface painter. So if I wanted to, I could paint fire here and just paint fire all over the world. And that would be completely fine. And I can also, if I wish, do this while the players are playing. So if we wanted to, for instance, have it where the players have started a fire by accident or on purpose, and they're also now waiting around and talking when they really should be evacuating, you could very easily say, okay, well, you set the fire to this tent, and now it's spreading, and now it's still spreading, and it'll actually add some urgency to your players as they realize the fire is literally catching up with them. So we'll just get rid of this for a second. Actually, I'll paint a little bit, and I'll show you just how interactive it all is. So this is fire, and as you can imagine, it should be doused by water. If I paint water over it, it will instantly douse the fire and turn into steam. Likewise, I can electrify that steam to turn it into a static cloud. All of the interactions that you'd imagine in Original Sin 2, like normal, are in GM mode as well. There's also some pretty cool extra cloud effects in here of explosions, so that if you wanted to, say, trigger a trap, you could just click explosion and the players trigger the trap, and then everything goes boom. So that's Surface Painter. The next thing I want to show you is the item generator. The item generator, from what you might have seen back in March when we were showing the GM mode, has actually significantly changed and improved. You can create 3 different types of items: your shields, your weapons, and your gear. If we wanted to, say, create a new weapon and make a big dwarven mace, we will determine how common it is. Say we're going to make an uncommon big dwarven mace. Actually, let's make a unique one. And then we're going to say it's level 5. So you can see here that we've got the little icon for the mace, but we can rename it as we wish, and we can also then give it a description if we want to. I'm not going to do that for the moment for the purposes of this video, but you can let your imagination and creativity run wild. Once I've accepted everything and click create, the item will be created and placed into my Game Master's inventory. This is really useful because it means that these items that you put into your inventory will go from scene to scene to scene. Anything I place in the world here will not travel to the next scene. So if I wanted this big dwarven mace to actually be, say it was the ring from Lord of the Rings, and we wanted the ring to travel to another scene because some unforeseen evil or good brought it from one scene to the next, and you wanted it to basically recur, you could do that by putting it into your GM's inventory and bringing it out. Another good use for this inventory is to actually create items before the campaign starts, and then drop them as the players are being rewarded for doing various things. So this isn't actually the extent of what we can do with the customization of the mace. If I right click on it, I can manage it just like I can manage everything else in the game. By managing it, you'll see that I've opened up the item sheet here, and there's a huge amount of control. I can say if it's identified or unidentified. I can change if it's going to be what sort of how common it is. I can change if it has different sockets for rune crafting. I can add its level, durability, price, and its weight. I can also, if I want to, add attributes. So if we want to give strength for using it, and we want to add damage, we can. If we wanted to, say, add extra combat abilities, or even civil abilities, because maybe it's going to help you with your persuasion if you've got this bat with you. Likewise, if we want to give it a resistance, we can do that. We can even change its damage type. And finally, if we want to, we can attach skills to it. So if you had, for instance, a purging dwarven mace, or some sort of dwarven mace that also shot fireballs out of it, I could go to my skills inventory, take fireball, drag it over, and now when I use this mace, whenever I have it equipped, I will also have the ability to cast fireball. That's how you customize items in Original Sin 2. And that is essentially most of the things you can do in the game field. 2 things that you don't see in this presentation because we're creating a campaign right now. I'll just remove the minimap for a second. One is making a roll. And when I click on this, I'll be able to choose any one of my players or all of my players and get them to roll a dice. We don't limit it to do it to a D20. You can actually roll any type of polyhedral dice that you can imagine. And you can also then give rewards to people. So when they make a roll, you can determine if it's a success or a failure, and then you'll role play or you'll give a reward based on that. Likewise, on the give reward, it's very simple. You can either give experience or gold. and you can again choose whether it's to everybody or one person or no people. That's the fundamentals of the game field. There's some intricacies here that I can't show right now because we're not in the game. But the last thing I want to show you is the vignette window. The vignette window is essentially your best way of storytelling and preparing story while you're playing Original Sin's Game Master mode. You see the same functionality over here on the right hand side where you can create folders and create multiple vignettes and change them. And we can basically create any sort of text we want to. So if we wanted to create a scene where the players were approaching the bandit camp, I would change the image. I would find a relevant image of them approaching the bandit camp. Maybe in this case, they're walking through the forest on their way there. Again, I can find any image I want to or create an image and put it in by browsing. I can also then resize or edit as I wish. And what I can do now is tell the story of them approaching the bandit camp. So you are approaching. And I can set the scene, and then we can role play it as we wish, and I can also give them multiple choices that they can vote on as a group. You can do this on the fly very easily and then hit publish, or if you want to, you can also prepare as much as you can prepare and then publish them as it's time to show the players as they encounter a new scene or a new enemy or a new NPC. That's the vignette window, the game field, and the overview map of Original Sin 2 Game Master mode. The last thing I wanted to show you, which is one of the new functionalities since we showed it last, is the ability to add stickies. By adding stickies, I'll double click here and add details to it. We can basically use these as notes to ourselves as GMs. It's also very useful if I wanted to export this and give it to a friend by adding notes to the various points. So if I wanted to add notes to the bandit outpost here and tell myself or other GMs what's meant to happen when you encountered this, it becomes its own GM module where you can create an entire module for your friends or even people on Steam and explain everything that should happen step by step by step, and you'll be able to follow those steps by using the sticky notes and easily follow the instructions made by you or another GM. Thank you for watching this presentation video of Divinity Original Sin 2's Game Master mode, and I hope you enjoy it when you get to play with it on September 14th.